Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we're going to do some maintenance pruning on what I called my root beer barrel jade. You can see it's got a nice trunk here. It's been growing really well. Quite a bit shaggy. Let's take a quick spin of it here. It's really growing, so it definitely needs a prune. And you can see the shoots have really taken off. But before we get to pruning, I want to take a walk down memory lane and show you, um, you know, the development of this tree. Mainly, I want to sort of demonstrate how quickly these grow and develop and why they are one of my favorite species, absolute favorite species for bonsai. So let's take a walk down memory lane. So you can see here, this is the first picture. This is all the way back from October of 2022. I'm pretty sure I got these in the fall. I got this tree in the fall, and you can see I was experimenting with a little wire there. Actually, cracked the quite soundly cracked the trunk. But I figured, well, the wire's holding it together, and so I just let it alone and to see what would happen. But yeah, this is the humble beginnings of this tree. By the way, this tree is the one on the left with the wire on it. Um, but yeah, you can see very, very thin, not really much more than kind of a twig, maybe a skinny pencil thick. So here we are in February. It's the tree on the right, the rightmost tree there. Again, you can see the wire, and it's starting to get a little character, growing a few leaves. This is a few months later. This was my initial sort of indoor growing shelving system. I started with just, sort of those clip-on lights and wasn't really sure, how much I was going to scale this at that time. But you can see the tree is, they really like growing. And, I had already selected a pot to put it in, which you can see it's kind of resting in there. But yeah, sort of developing along. So again, we jump a few months ahead. I think this is spring of 2023, and I put it in that little red pot, which to me looks like a red, those root beer barrels. At least I had them when I was a kid. And so that's sort of what I call this tree. So this is a little pot I got off Etsy. And yeah, you can see the tree. It actually has some identifiable branches at this point, and it's getting a little bit of a trunk on it. So for this next picture, we've jumped ahead 1 year, just using clip and grow, and you can see, it's actually starting to look like a tree. The trunk is looking great. It's actually got some texture on it, and you can see we're getting some branches and some ramification. I'm sort of going for that up and out growth. And, it's actually quite charming, and this is pretty amazing to me. So we started in 2022, and this is where I got it in 2 years, growing it in very tiny pots. And here we are in August of 2024. So this was the results of my most recent pruning on this tree. And that kind of brings us up to date. So I guess what is that? From 2022 to 2024, we started from something that was basically a sprig, a raw cutting, had just a few root hairs on it, and developed it into this. And this is growing it in small pots. If you put these in larger pots, it'll develop more quickly, but I kind of like to keep it small and refined. But yeah, so you can see these trees develop very, very quickly, and you can do a lot without investing a whole lot of time. I also want to remind you, I have playlists for all of my trees. So if you go to my channel page and click on playlists, you can see this tree. And particularly the last two pictures I've shown you, there are videos and tree maintenance and pruning associated with that. So if you're interested, you can check that out. So here we are again, once again, back to the future. And you can see we've got our work cut out for us here. This thing really needs a cut. I've got a few things I want to look at. You can see this thickness on the top here. I probably should have pruned this earlier, but let's just get to it. And the first thing I'll do is just take off overly long stuff. I just really want to cut this way back and get it back into its profile. So, I pretty much typically go around anything that's too long. I'm just going to cut it back and go back to just a few sets of leaves. And, we'll fine tune this as we go. But this is, I think, usually a good starting point is just to take it back, um, to a reasonable length and go from there. One of the things I wanted to mention, you can see the internodes between the leaf sets. They're pretty consistent here, but I mean, they definitely vary. And I had a question on the channel about that. So look at all these cuttings. I'm telling you, sign up. Look at this thing. This has got good genes. Coffee and what is it? Coffee and Bonsai with Tom at gmail.com. And if you want cuttings, let me know. And I just kind of randomly pick people and I'll send you out some. As long as you're willing to pay shipping and buy me a cup of coffee. Um, but what I wanted to say in the internodes is, depending on the temperature, how much light they're getting, your watering schedule, those internodes will either expand or contract. So I kind of want to go for this sort of shape. It's sort of, kind of a tall, squat tree. And I think I'm going to really take the top down here because I sort of want to flatten it out a bit and go from there. But yeah, it's you can really impact the growth a lot by how you care for the tree. And what I found is, the longer those shoots get, the longer the internodes get because it kind of picks up more and more vigor. But if you cut them back, usually the first few sets of leaves are very tight. And again, that's why we're constantly growing and cutting back and growing and cutting back. I'm still just going to profile here. I'm sort of working back to those two sets of leaves and, just reducing clutter. I want to kind of create some sparsity in the tree. I tend to prune my trees pretty hard when I prune them and then just let them go. I just find that doing it that way keeps the tree healthy because it allows it to gain some vigor. And then I just let it kind of go a little bit crazy and then cut it back. And then it will usually, it has a lot of reserves. It'll kind of jump out with more vigor. And plus, these trees, I just brought them in from fall. I brought them in for the winter. And I try to keep them out as long as I can. So what I find happens there is that, they kind of get some rest at the, kind of early fall before it gets cold. I keep them out until it's about mid 40s. It starts getting below that. I like to bring them in and also, the rain starts here in Seattle. So it didn't this year. It was quite dry, but usually you get so much rain that I don't want to risk, root rot, although I've had really good luck with these trees as long as it gets to be reasonably warm during the day. For whatever reason, they seem to do much better with more water outside. But I kind of like to be in control of how much water they get, although they love rain. So you give them natural rain. It's looking pretty good, huh? We got a nice triangular shape. I have a bit of a problem here in the top. You can see we go from 1 to 3. And it's also gotten quite thick, which is the downside of the strategy I just mentioned of allowing it to grow wild because, especially if you don't have your branches pruned to go, from 1 to 2, you definitely usually don't want it to go from 1 to 3 at a node or more, or you get a lot of swelling. And you can see I have a bit of swelling here. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do about it. You can see I've got this branch here. It's kind of parallel. It's two back branches, and I think I'm just going to shorten that out because it's very, it distracts from the main trunk, and then also it's a parallel branch to the branch in the back to, to its left if I'm looking at it from the front here. And it's just distracting and there's no space in there. And, I've been growing this tree for a while. And, what I find is as they get bigger, you kind of have to make these decisions, right? Because when it was small, you just let it grow everywhere. But then as, the branches are getting some character, so I'm taking this off. I think it's not needed. That's much better. Um, so now it doesn't interfere with the back branch or also the main trunk. And we have plenty of branching and foliage on this right branch that you don't even notice it. But what I was saying is, as you develop the tree and it really starts filling out and getting some ramification and growing lots of branches, you tend to. I usually start with too many, and then you have to make decisions like this because as the tree gets more towards the size that you're eventually going to have it be, there's just not enough room, and you get these conflicts, visual conflicts, and actually physical conflicts. They'll just grow right into each other. And so you have to make these decisions. And what that usually means is you're simplifying. You're kind of cutting branches out and keeping things that are, you know, that flow, that look good, that don't distract you. Um, and so I don't know, just a little philosophy there on that. And I found that a lot now that I have a lot of these smaller trees that are, kind of getting to this stage where they're actually starting to look like something. That simplification is really, critical to keeping the tree, from getting overly thick and actually being more convincing as a bonsai. And, I can certainly see more simplification we can do along those lines. Like on this left side of the tree, I have sort of two parallel branches going back. But I tend to just, let it grow. Like I don't, like right now it looks fine. You really have to look for that. Eventually, it will be more obvious, and that's the time I usually fix it. And then I sort of pick the best branch, right? So, you can play that game as well. And I'm looking at this. I think the tree's too tall. And so, I mean, it looks good. It looks good, but it's almost too triangular. And as I mentioned before, I've got this kind of thickness on the top, which, I mean, it barely looks good now, and I certainly can't let it go any further, or it'll look even more unnatural. I can always regrow the top of the tree; they grow pretty quickly. Um, but I'm just trying to think what I want to do with this. So you can see this area is it. There's just too many branches here. At a minimum, I need to thin this out so that it doesn't continue to get thick. Because if that's the strongest growing area of the tree, and it will just continue to get fatter and fatter and fatter, and then you'll have a big problem on your hands eventually. So I'm trying to think of, you can see it goes from 1 to 3 here, and do I want to, just shorten it, which I think it'll still look quite good. I mean, it's almost more of an acacia style tree there where it's very uh, thin. Well, not really thin, but like the horizontal distance is less. It's flat looking. That's what I meant to say, flat looking. Uh, so let me think about it. I mean, it's definitely getting too thick there, and like I said, it looks okay now, but it has gotten significantly worse since the last time I pruned it, and I really have to do something. So if I were to cut it like that, that doesn't look bad. Um, and then I would be reducing it to 2, and probably the new leader on the right would grow and develop into something to the point where I could actually remove the one on the left eventually. And I think if I kind of manage this thickness as it continues to grow, then it'll work out. So I'm just trying to convince myself this is what I want to do. I think I mentioned in my last video, measure twice and cut once. So that's what's going on. But I do think if I take that out, I think it will improve. I think it'll improve the tree now and certainly in the future. Um, So let me steel myself. I know sometimes they say he who hesitates is lost. See if I cover it up there, you can see. I think it looks quite nice, actually. I think it gives it more of a natural, rounded canopy look. And so here we go. Let's just take that out. And yeah, I think I'm going to be happy with that. Um, and let me just clean it up here, and we will see what we've got. Yeah, so cleaning this up, I think, let's take a look at it. I think that's a dramatic improvement. I mean, you have to imagine this is going to grow out. I'm going to have new branches to the right. Probably where I cut it there, I'll get something going to the left, and then I'll figure out what I want to do with this branch on the left. But yeah, let me know in the comments. What do you think? Was this the right decision? Should I have kept the top on it? I'm just happy with it. I mean, look how, it's nice and flat on top. I feel it's much more convincing and that makes the trunk look better. Always surprises me when, like sometimes I get a little grief for people think I prune too hard. Um, But it has a lot of advantages. I mean, it makes the tree's physically smaller, but it looks bigger. And I feel like you get more leaves, and it really leads to faster growth of the trunk because you're pulling all kinds of energy to support those leaves up through the whole thing. And I mean, I can tell you one of the reasons I decided to prune this, it just uses a tremendous amount of water. I was watering this thing every day indoors, which gives you a lot of growth, but I don't particularly like doing that because it's a lot of work. And so, I'm not as young as I used to be. So this is, by pruning it, it also uses a lot less water. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, let's clean this up. I think this is looking really good. And I guess the thought for the day is, track your trees, even if it's pictures. I find pictures work really good. Try to take a reasonably high quality picture so you can really see the tree and keep them in a folder, and you'll be shocked at the development over time. I mean, I do videos of the trees as well, which is fabulous. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to invest that kind of effort, but it's yeah. Let's take a look at this. It's just great, and we'll grow the top out here, and we'll just let this thing fill out more. But yeah, thought for the day, take pictures of your trees, and you'll be very surprised when you look at them over time how far they've come in really not a lot of time. And, look, I just can't help myself. I keep pruning, so I'm going to put the scissors down, I think. And yeah, let's take a look at this. You can see it's nice and flat. I mean, I could just picture this out on a desert plain somewhere, just barely grasping to life. Um, let's take a victory lap. Look at it from the back. And I think we did a lot great work kind of simplifying it, taking stuff out that wasn't adding any value and confusing things. And I think I'm just very happy with this, where this tree is now. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.